Are are we live? Yes, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a good Saturday stream. How is everybody doing? For those of my friends on the west coast of America, how is everybody surviving the fucking heat wave? I'm sitting in my room running my AC at full blast, but every time I step out of here to go to the kitchen or something, I immediately start sweating. It is a little crazy around here. Glad to see we got quite a few people in here. I want to start off by giving a quick sort of apology. I know yesterday's stream isn't actually going up for some people, is continually adding time to it for some people, and seems to ultimately just be aggressively bugged out. And I'm sorry about that. I'm not really sure what I can do on my end to fix it. The simple fact that I'm streaming now and it is, yeah, it's still adding time for me, means I really don't know if I'll be able to get that fixed on my own or if I'll just have to wait for it to resolve itself in one way or another. Either way, we didn't actually fully knock down Fatalis during that stream, so next week we'll be doing it again, and hopefully we'll actually get the victory, and that stream will get turned into a VOD without any of these issues happening. Yeah, it's probably going to be all Twitch side, but that just means there's really nothing I can do at this point, which sucks, because that was fun as hell. Now then, let's see if we can get everything shifted over and start readying ourselves up just a bit. Okay, I gotta totally delete this test deal sometime, but we're fine for now. Hey yo, Wood Bogus, how's it going? So, as everybody can see, and as everybody knows, my Saturday streams are back into talking D&D. And today that means a couple of pretty special things. First up, we're going to be continuing on with the Creative Monster we started last weekend. I'll do a little backtracking so everybody showing up can get a good idea of what has happened to create this confusing monstrosity. And I'll go ahead and let you all know that I've been doing a bit of designing and building and idea creation outside of stream. So I'll tell you what has officially become of some of the features that make up our little boy that I am dubbing the Lapsus. Hope you're all staying hydrated and safe over there. The weather is pretty crazy and destructive lately. Yeah, thank you, Marcial. And I wish you the best. I don't think anything major is going on in Germany right now, but still, hoping you're keeping yourself good as well. So, after we talk a little bit about our totally homebrewed monstrosity created by committee, we'll be going ahead and moving into a little something I promised to somebody named Upgrade during last stream. One of the chat viewers sent me a few of their homebrewed subclasses for D&D 5th edition. And we're going to be going ahead and looking through all three of those. And I'll be giving kind of my thoughts, opinions on what has been created, whether things are balanced or out of whack, and any areas I think that are really good or still need some work on. I'm also hoping you all will be joining me in this process and giving your own opinions of what's really cool, what you love about them, and stuff that might be a little confusing or hard to read especially. Whenever designing things for a deep system like Dungeons & Dragons, one of the major issues is always going to be readability. And hopefully that'll be good. Oh, Marcial, I tweeted the sketch and tagged you on Twitter a few hours ago. Or do you use another way of communication? For my stream stuff, I guess I'm still personally getting used to using Twitter and all. So I do apologize. I'm not huge on using it. I do love receiving... Okay. Okay, let's hear. I'm gonna see if I can grab this boy and drag him in to show everybody. Number one thing, if you ever want to get my attention, especially if I'm going to be streaming that day, is please feel free to whisper. There we go. Oh, God. Feel free to whisper me on Twitch itself. And so I will always 100% be able to notice that when I'm getting ready, when I'm setting things up, or just before I stream, or when I'm coming back to check any of my analytics. But don't worry, as I've got this boy up and ready. That is beautifully done. I did my own little sketch that I'll be showing off as well, though I did it with a mouse and keyboard in MS Paint, so it is not going to be existing in quite the same level as your boy is. And I think we'll have to make some very interesting visual decisions about this as we're finishing things up. But now that all the setup is out of the way, let's instead start ourselves in on a bit of a recap. Oh, fuck, when did you meet my mom? God damn, Blinty. So, first things first. What did we do during our last Dungeons & Dragons stream? Well, one of our major deals was I was creating a series of polls to have everybody in chat help me build a monster from scratch. And due to you all inflicting on me a series of ties across a lot of different options, we've had to create something that I could only describe as an aberrant horror. Our new little monster lives in both urban and ocean environments, and over the course of its life, morphs between three major stages. As a youngling, it lives entirely within the ocean, eventually becoming amphibious, and finally concluding its life in a stage that allows it flight on land. The creature has a primitive intelligence, meaning it can talk and plan to a degree, and also able to use basic tools. The creature has spell-like abilities. These aren't necessarily spells, but they have magical properties to them. Though I will say, after a bit of building, there are a couple of spells I want to give these little boys, and I'll explain once we get into a bit of what I've been doing on my own. The creature has a lot of tentacles. This is the decision we came to on its limbs, and because of that, it has no wings. So it instead flies using some type of either magical or buoyancy-filled bladders along its body. These creatures are chaotic and tend to err on the side of good. Their major wants in life are pranks and neatness, and their favorite target of their pranks are fishermen. Now, that is all that was officially decided during our last stream, and I've taken that mentally in and done a bit of work trying to build up a creature that I thought would be very entertaining to have. So first things first, for kind of my visual inspiration, I decided to look around for these little boys. These kind of arrow-headed salamanders or lizards. Kind of a prehistoric look to them, but their head shape was very unique. And their body having this kind of semi-aquatic feel to it seemed a little perfect for what we were doing. Of course, we have to lop off all of this little boy's limbs, turning him into sort of an arrow-headed eel, and begin adding on tentacles to this little guy. My imagining then was a creature that had a long, slender body with an arrowhead, and just a series of tentacles going up and down its body that it could use for contacting, grabbing, and moving things around. However, I also had another little salamander feature I wanted added on to this boy. That would be how he uses his floating and air sacs. So now I'll show you all the sketch I made for my design of the little boy. I wanted to give them the axolotl kind of external gills as inflatable air bladders focused around its neck and shoulders. These things thus float up from their shoulders, allowing their long body and tentacles to dangle underneath them as they float around, just sort of through the air. This is, this, I think, explains quite a lot of why I don't do art streams and the like, but it's a pretty broad idea of what I've been thinking about in my head to design my little lapsus boy. Good night, Eric. I'm having insomnia again, so I'm happy to catch one of your streams. Oh shit, Insane Sashiro. How are you doing? I was about to compliment the drawing and then saw it. Yeah, no, that's fair. So, I think between our two designs, I could tell who's really the artist here. But, I guess a quick question. It's better than some show art I've seen in art shows. Move over, Junie, new artist to town. 100%. Haha, fish thingy, yo. Yeah. So, I guess this is just sort of the mental idea I was building in my head. Was one of the boys like this, with tentacles and just these external bright pink gills that inflate in air and allow them to float around. Now, of course, when thinking about this tentacled, floating, magical prankster, I had to admit that the only type of creature I could imagine this being is an aberration. Meaning, though, that they would have to either come from the far realm, a land of chaos, freakishness, and basically an H.P. Lovecraft wet dream, or they were made by aboleths. Now, neither of these... So he drew the really pretty one because I doubt it was... So who drew the really pretty one because I doubt it was Eric? It was not Eric. That was actually done by, I believe, Marciel was the one who had done it. The axolotl design really got me hooked. Yeah, just sort of the split between the arrow-headed salamander and the axolotl is really what I like. However, these things being kind of a chaotic good, I think pulls them away from being able to be from the far realm. It gives them not enough of a malicious lean, not enough of an insanity element to them. So that means I think these creatures had to be made. But then that left me with the only aberrant creature really native to the material plane with the powers of creation would be aboleths. The single-mindedly god-destroying maniacs of the deep ocean. These as well didn't feel quite right. If we wanted these neat little boys that like to float around and mess with fishermen, I couldn't imagine them being made by the malicious energies of the aboleths. So, that left me with the only option for where monstrous creatures come from. And that is a wizard experiment gone wrong. That's right. I believe these little boys were what happened when a wizard got a hold of an aboleth corpse and tried to make a more subservient creature out of them. Something able to adapt to many different environments and to act as in Wizard Tower servants, able to clean and maintain. However, whenever you experiment with a creature from the far realm, it's only understandable that eventually things would go wrong. These boys are the perfect combination of cute and terrifying. Their slimy bodies, at least in their final stage, can secrete at will either a foamy or liquid material that is perfectly functional as soap. And that was the key in my mind. Not only can these creatures secrete soap, but they possess a few spells that have been reflavored into the production of soap. Chief among them is my favorite concept was granting these creatures the ability to cast the spell Disintegrate. Only instead of turning things into their original atomic pieces and body parts, it can in fact turn objects, people, and creatures into soap. Another one of their major spells, yes, is Grease, Little Pink Bowser, where they just cast out a large area of sudsy, bubbly, slippery confusion. Do they have a body, or is it all tentacles from the neck down? What I was really imagining was basically like a long eel body at this head, but like here, kind of ringed with tentacles. Almost like cilia that go up and down their body, but are fully functional tentacles to a degree. And once I figured out that these creatures can use some magic to create areas of soap, naturally secrete soap, and could cast Disintegrate, and a way to turn objects and people into entire soap statues, or whatever they were previously, their mentality began to take shape for me. These are entirely adorable creatures. When they approach an individual, they're able to create a telekinetic or telepathic link with them. Basic splash, yeah. Where they can speak any language telepathically to an individual creature. However, in order to make everyone feel calmer and more comfortable speaking with them, they do out loud make strange purring noises. So these creatures might approach an individual adventurer in a group and begin speaking in their mind, asking them why they're here, what they want, and if they need any soap. All the while, the rest of the party can see their party member seemingly understanding a creature that has approached and begun going. Everything about them I want to be uncannily cute, which all can be immediately undercut when they cast Disintegrate on a person or object, destroying it and replacing it with literal soap. The creature is truly amazing, casting grease to cause others to slip into the port and just trolling fishermen. Literally fish dog, I love it. Okay, my design was way too monstrous. First time chat. Hey! We got a bot in chat. Welcome to our robot overlords. I do hope you enjoy these. And so, with my idea in place of these little creatures that are ultimately aberrants, I also decided their personality type to be very interesting. These are some cutesy little creatures that love to occasionally talk to people that they trust. The thing is, they also don't quite have the same morals as other beings. As was stated, they are obsessed with cleanliness and pranks. And so have the habit of just turning any inconvenient, destructive, or unfortunate person, place, or thing into soap. There might exist some of these creatures powerful enough to engage in combat with, say, a dragon and its horde. Yeah, no, Disintegrate is a very powerful spell, and I think really hammers home the secret power that these things possess. Imagine a party hearing about magical items and artifacts going missing, of spottings of a dragon long ago. They begin to make their way into a massive underground cave system, and as they delve deeper, they begin to notice the halls seem to turn into white ivory and marble. Every object here seems to be made of the same material. And as they get to the very center of the cave, they see the sleeping form of a massive, white, elder dragon. But as the party slowly approaches it, one man reaches his hand out, and realizing the dragon is not real. As he places his hand upon it, it crumbles apart in his hands into some strange white, chalky material. Then the party hears a distant burbling noise. As they look, they see a slightly bioluminescent creature floating down a cave tunnel towards them, seemingly suspended by a ring of gills around its neck. It approaches a party member, and in the back of his mind he can hear a voice. "Hi there! My name's Soapy." "Hi, Soapy? Do you like my cave?" "Yeah. What happened to the dragon?" "Oh! I turned him into soap." These creatures are meant to be terrifying in the nonchalant way they approach what they do. They have a habit of sneaking aboard ships, I would imagine. Some of them practically seeking out pirate ships in order to play their favorite prank, transmuting iron cannonballs into massive balls of soap, and to watch as the pirates fire the cleaning product across the ocean waves to clean the decks of enemy ships. I think this has been the best way I've been able to put together these aberrant features, the prankster nature, and their obsession with cleanliness. Ultimately, these creatures will possess the power, the absolute raw magical abilities of an aboleth, the blood used to create them. They will be filled with the desire to clean and provide services like soap almost exclusively due to the enchantments of the wizard that made them originally. But everything about them is balled up into this cute pet-like shape filled with aberrant powers. I could see them turning some poor fisherman's boat into soap. Exactly. These creatures are terrifying in their power, but are meant to look, act, and speak as adorably as possible. Oh, yeah, no. Or imagine a fisherman bringing out a bucket of ice, and as he puts the first fish into it, the lapsus will notice the dirty fish in this dirty bucket, and to be a little helpful, turns all of his ice into soap. Don't worry, guys, they're not guilty of any pranks or murder, for their own hands are clean. Do they have teeth? Actually, I think that is a good place for us to start to get back into the designing process. I suppose, no. I have one last detail to cover. The final thing I decided on was the name Lapsus. Now, the reason I think is very poetic and perfect in the way. I wanted these creatures to be based heavily on aboleths and the aberrations. So I had to go ahead and look up kind of aberrations' origin and meaning. As you can imagine, it's originally a Latin word that could also be translated into error. Basically a thing where it shouldn't be. I then spent some time looking up synonyms for error until eventually I came to another very interesting word. A slip-up, or a slip, an accident, a mistake, and error, but also what happens if you try to grab a particularly soapy, sudsy creature. Plugging that in its meaning back in, we have the Latin word lapsus, meaning a slip. These creatures' names still means a mistake, but more specifically, a slip-up. We simply cleaned up our act. Yep, chat, really be wholesome. Wholesome and terrifying is what I'd say. A severe and continuous lapse in judgment. Exactly. So now, we just have a few more design things I want to hammer home for our little creature. Now that we all have a better understanding of what the lapsus is, where it came from, what it desires, how it behaves, and to a degree how it thinks, there's just a few more details I want to nail down. First and foremost, does it have teeth? I personally had my own idea about this, but I want to see what you think. Is this a creature that is actually... No, it doesn't have teeth. It's entirely mouthless. It only communicates telepathically and through strange burbling noises, but lacks any actual mouth. It's an aberrant after all, and doesn't require to eat once it's in its final stages of life. It simply secretes, pranks, and goes about its day. Is it perhaps? Yes, it has teeth, but we'll say it's an herbivore. Is this actually a carnivore with needle-like teeth? Is this instead a consumer of magic? This is a creature that maybe hunts down magical artifacts or areas of great magical power and will begin to eat, dissolve, and consume them in order to gain the magical power itself. Toothless makes its cuteness level go higher. Teeth would be too menacing. The very tight teeth. Lots and lots of teeth. And so let's think of a final good option then. Okay, mouth, but toothless. Alright, y'all. We'll get this posted up. I'm going to be voting as well, because I know which one of these options I really like. So, does this creature have teeth? Or how does it eat? Or what does it eat? Should have anything to do with classic aboleth stuff. Thinking of long memory-eating stuff, or is that too sinister? I really don't mind that, but I'm thinking these creatures were designed by a wizard to serve a very specific purpose. So, if people... We'll see how the voting comes out, because right now it's looking like people are really going in a more sinister direction. It eats by dissolving meat with a very basic soap. Okay. Now that could be very sinister. However, we could say at least that these creatures do have needle-like teeth. They are carnivores with needle-like teeth. Bases can work just like acids. That's true. So, though, this is a carnivore and it consumes meat, but that still gives us a few options. kind of how does it eat? Is this kind of a classic salamander? Whatever it can swallow? Are the teeth simply meant for trapping and not actually used for tearing or ripping? Is this a tear, or is this a rip and tear eater? A creature that rips off pieces of meat using its needle-like teeth. Will it dissolve meat using its soapy secretions? Or a final interesting option. Is it parasitic? Damn, I'm getting this spelling wrong. There we go. Is it a parasite? Does it consume blood and emotions, sinking its teeth in while people sleep in order to absorb their very vitality? Yes, whatever it could swallow. That's both horrifying with a hint of cute. That cutesy, soapy introduction takes on a whole different meaning with a needle-toothed Cheshire cat grin. Yeah, these creatures, I knew kind of what chat was going for, are designed to split the difference perfectly between cute and horrifying. And it looks like they'll be maintaining a bit of their aberrant abilities. You guys still have a little bit of time to vote. I can see people keeping them as pets, but it feeds off them without them knowing. Oh, God. All that are left are small needle marks in your skin, perfectly disinfected and a little sudsy. We are taking this very cute monster, making it so sinister. Soap gremlins. Soap gremlins, exactly. However, next up is going to be a very intimidating question, you all. So they are parasite. They feed on blood / vitality / memories, keeping them aberrant. Now is the most important question, though. How big are these creatures? Now, within D&D speak, there's a few different options that can come up. Let's see your sizes. Let's see here. I'll make sure I put in 5e. Alright, so that you all can get a look at this, we're going to go up quite a few of these. Are these boys tiny? Are they small? Are they medium, meaning human-sized? Are they large, meaning larger than humans? Or are these creatures huge in the final stages of their life, adopting the aboleth-like energy, a massive tentacled being slowly floating through caverns, somewhat like a beholder, approaching people and jokingly turning their swords into soap? Small dog size, larger than a person. Oh, God. So medium, but not quite large. Small at full size. I don't think a wizard would be that dumb. I think to subvert expectations even more, especially with Disintegrate, smaller is better. Small, I think, is really good. Though it might be ending up in the tiny category, there still is something about this little diminutive soap gremlin floating at you, being a gargantuan size, that I just kind of love the imagery of. But why can I see them using their powers and always having one-liner on hand? Soaps to be you. That was actually something a friend of mine and I were discussing. How much do these creatures love puns? Well, yeah, turns out these little boys are in fact a tiny size. So with that, I think we have all of like the design elements about them. I still want to eventually build them up a full spell list, and I'll get to working on that whenever I get these boys totally flavored up with all the features they need. I'll make sure to let you guys know during a D&D stream and to get a link out so everyone can take a look at their final forms. But I'm wondering, is there anything else anyone thinks we definitely need to decide now? Are there any features you think we're missing? Any ideas that you think with how I've explained them don't quite make sense or need a bit of expounding? Or any other details we need to decide via committee and not leave in my hands? I'm open to hearing any last-minute suggestions and seeing if there are any last polls. But I'm feeling very happy with the design of our tiny little lapsus. Its face, look this. Are they pink, white? Okay. That is fair. I guess I hadn't really come up with any colors besides their gills. I wanted to maintain kind of that axolotl look to it. I want to hear some suggestions. What kind of a color palette do you imagine these boys having? Would they look like salamanders, like eels? Would they be very colorful or very muted? Or do they have a degree of control over what color they are? There are too many color options and designs for me to really make an effective poll on it, but I want to know what everyone thinks. Undercooked Trash seems to think that it needs to be entirely pink. I think a pink basis works well with like purple, blue, red spots. The pink fits very soap-like, camouflaged like an octopus. I think they should be pale with no saturated colors like soap itself. White and pink is what I was imagining. Well then, it seems like they are predominantly pink in color. Transparent skin to see the insides, intestines, lungs, and the like. There we go. But I like this. So the creatures are predominantly pink in color. Mostly muted, as was discussed, not very saturated in their colors, but I think they do have a degree of personalized design to each one. Brilliant. I love it, love it, love it. And I think we have created ourselves an adorable, horrifying, absolutely strange creature here that I can't even imagine how a party properly reacts to one of these things if they should meet one. Oh gods, what have we made? What is this thing? Alrighty then. Also, Eric, I just realized you're missing. No! Oh god, that's true. I am missing. One second, everybody. Da-da. There we are. Well, luckily I haven't been needed, so I think our cute little lapsus being able to hold the majority of the attention is nice. Can it be trained as a pet? I think they can be spoken to, persuaded, and partially kept as pets. But I also think due to the amount of power and sort of the absenceness I'm imagining their minds to have, I think they'd still be very dangerous pets who, on a whim, can cast the disintegrate spell, meaning they are a horrifying thing to keep around. Powerful, but chaotic in nature. Now then, I think, unless there's anything else, that seems like a good place for us to finish up our little Lapsus design. About something like a familiar. I mean, familiars aren't actually the creature that they are shaped like. A familiar is a will of magic shaped into the form of a creature. So that's just a major thing to keep in mind for how familiars work in D&D, is while they can appear as a cat or an imp or a bat, they aren't actually those animals and are instead a spirit made of magical energy in the caster's will. I kind of see them keeping way bigger things as pets and people being confused about who the actual pet is. I mean, more as a trained animal like an attack dog, less pet. So do remember, they have a primitive intelligence. So they're not super intelligent, much like an aboleth would be, but they do know enough to be able to speak and communicate. I'll ask you to stay clean or I'll make sure you won't be dirty again. Yeah, but if I could just mention one last quirk I definitely imagine these creatures having. I imagine them having a habit of being able to tell when a magical item is cursed and turning it into soap to undo the curse. Just kind of their most powerful way of being a cleaner is the destruction of cursed magical items by turning them into soap. But, we have important business to move on to. Something sent to me by someone in chat. A little project I promised them I would work on and show to all of you to help in building, finalizing, creating good ideas for. I did send them a message after they had asked me if I'd be able to do this today, telling them that we would be. Upgrade, are you in chat today? I'm not seeing Upgrade on my chat list, which is unfortunate if he isn't here. So I'm going to just take a minute to go take a look and see if he's online. If not, that's all right. We'll still be kind of like a dispel curse spell. Exactly. Only it doesn't dispel. It destroys. Alright, what are you doing? Get out of here. So let's see. Has there been any response from Upgrade? It doesn't look like it. Unfortunate. So instead today, I think we'll be doing a bit more of a broad kind of look at someone's homebrew. So this is made by, if anybody wants to look this up, someone that goes by Kill Zero or Upgrade, Downgrade. And they've actually sent me 3 different homebrew subclasses that they've built, designed, and that I promised I'd go over and kind of break down my opinions, thoughts, and get kind of all of your responses to their abilities, features, and how everything works together overall. Of course, I want to make sure I'm able to leave comments. So I converted most everything over into a Google Doc, and I've been kind of going through it over the week before coming here today, so we could have ourselves a very clear, straightforward discussion. During this process, I'm going to be going through all of the features and everything. This is great. Got to be putting this in the background as I play Horizon. Oh, hell yeah, dude. Kick it off. So, this is going to be kind of me explaining a bit of things that I do when I'm doing homebrew. For anybody who maybe isn't interested in adding homebrew in, but likes to make homebrew themselves, this is also a good opportunity to kind of show you major things to look for, common mistakes, or kind of how I approach trying to make sure certain things are balanced, fit, and are very clear to people. Those are going to be kind of the 3 major things we're looking over. Upgrade! Holy shit, you made it. I hope you got my message. I'm sorry if this is an inconvenient time, Are you going to be able to chillax for the rest of the stream, or do you want me to just do things more in a VOD format for you? No, that's no problem, dude. We were just knocking out building our little creature from last time, and I'm only now starting into this. Sure? All right. You just let me know if at any time you're needing to peel out. Because you're the #1 person. Did y'all check the subclasses? That's exactly what we're starting on now. I was just sort of explaining that for people who this isn't their stuff or maybe aren't interested in this is still a really good moment to kind of learn common ups and downs of the building process, things to always keep in mind when trying to think about balance, design, and also what help me and Upgrade here look at readability. Oh, so what did you check now? Well, we are going to be starting off first with your Path of the Primal Instinct. Just to allow me to be able to type things out and kind of show people a bit of what I'm thinking, I've converted a lot of this over into a Google Doc for me to work on. But just to make sure everybody gets a good look, make sure you take a look here at the beautiful design it was in originally and not my cruel aerial simplification we're going to be running through. Which do you think is hard to balance? Homebrew race or homebrew class? That, Blinty, is entirely dependent on the edition. In 5th edition, homebrew races are very easy to balance because they are normally only accompanied by 3 or so features and have a very well set template to them. You're going to have probably 2 positive stats that each one's going to have. They're going to have 3 kind of weak but maybe a little flavorful features available to them. They're going to have a unique speed that's going to fall within a very set range. And because of that, in 5th edition, race is always going to be a lot easier to balance because the template is so much narrower than a subclass or a full class is. In some of the earlier editions, especially 4th edition, where a character's race had scaling abilities, more complicated effects to how they worked, races could actually be a lot harder to balance than classes. So that's a very edition to edition sort of answer. It's okay, man. Well, let's get into it. Also, always read the flavor, ties the subclasses well. All right, then we'll definitely start off with the path of primal instinct. The barbarians following the path of the primal instinct are people that have trained to abandon humanity while in the fray of battle, causing destruction regardless of friend or foe. They are individuals turning to survival and fighting animal instincts, losing their sense of self-preservation when the situation is dire. The first one we will be reading today is a subclass for the barbarian. Traditionally, a tank and melee damage dealer, barbarians gain quite a few features that help them remain standing during battle. Resistance to basic damage types, increases to damage using melee strength weaponry, and a proficiency with all weapons and armor types, allowing them to work really well in any martial position, though they most show their strength when they are unarmored, wielding a very big weapon, and going headlong into the fray. So those are major things to keep in mind as we begin delving into this particular subclass, is what barbarians traditionally do. So then, let us begin. A major thing to note is subclasses will only affect a few levels of a class. As you can see here, we're going to be looking at the effects at 3rd level, 6th level, 10th level, 14th, and I believe that's it for subclasses. So there's only so many features we'll be looking at, which is why we're going to be doing pretty deep delves into some of the information. So, without further ado, we'll be looking at the first feature, animalistic tendencies. At 3rd level, you gain proficiency in animal handling and survival. If you already have proficiency, you gain expertise in those skills, doubling your proficiency modifier. You also come to despise wearing any type of armor made predominantly of metal chains or plates. Additionally, you may attempt to snarl and show your aggressive, animalistic side to frighten those around you. As an action, you can make all creatures within 30 feet of you make a wisdom save, with a DC equal to 8 plus proficiency bonus, plus your strength modifier. If they fail, they become a frightened of you for 1 minute. If they are frightened, they may roll again at the end of their turn to get rid of this effect. Once the creature resists the effect, it is immune to it until they take a long rest. You may use this ability a number of times equal to your strength modifier. You regain use of this ability after a long rest. Now, I think the first thing I want to do is break this apart into 3 major steps here. We are first going to look at gaining proficiency or expertise in 2 skills. Now, expertise is a very powerful... Oh, there we go. It's a very powerful feature. Something not only I think 2 classes inherently get to go into, and no races I think gain a bonus in them. There are some features that can be used to gain expertise, but ultimately it is predominantly used as a tool for rogues. Because of that, I'm always a little nervous when giving expertise inherently to a class, as you begin to delve into another class's area of expertise in a way. Though, especially because this isn't your choice of feature, this is specifically animal handling and survival, I'm definitely a little more down for it. Looking at where the rogue class also gets its expertise, we can see that the rogue class gets to start at level 1 and gain 2 proficiencies. Let's see here. They gain, expertise. They gain 2 skill proficiencies, 1 skill proficiencies with Thieves' Tools. Their proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check used to make with either of these proficiencies. Yes, and feats will also cost 5 stat up. So, initially when I was reading this, I was a little nervous, as expertise always makes me nervous. But looking at rogues gaining this at level 1 for their choice of ability feature, I don't think giving it to another class just for 2 skills that are predetermined at 3rd level really breaks balance at all. I'd say upgrade, be very careful, and think about any time you're giving away expertise to anybody. But in this case, I really love your choice of animal handling and survival being very kind of rooted in the character's theming and being kind of the skills that are useful but aren't going to break the game in the way that if you had said something like stealth or athletics or things that are more frequently used. So here, there's a bit of nervousness, but I do agree. These aren't ultimately here. I don't think this is actually going to be any sort of a big issue, and is something that will start to guide a player on how to play the character, which I actually love. They are based in wisdom. Most barbs don't really have high wisdom generally. No, I agree with that. Unless they are going for the full, like, unarmored defense route. But even then, I think barbarians are actually based on constitution. So this, I believe, is definitely fine, but just an area to always keep in mind. Whenever you're building any sort of a class or race, expertise can quickly get out of hand if it isn't predetermined in the way that this one has been. Next up is you also come to despise wearing any type of armor made of metal chains or plates. This is one that actually I've got a question for you, Upgrade. Is this something that's meant to be flavor, or is this actually a restriction? Are you stating that the player can no longer wear metal armor, or is this a flavor? Because if this is a flavor thing, traditionally you want to put those at the top of a feature to make sure it's separated from actual mechanics. Both. It's both flavor and a restriction. Okay, but it is then a mechanical restriction. Then in that case, I think you're going to need to spell this out a little more specifically, because right now it's written just as flavor. So I can read this and be like, okay, they come to despise wearing it, but this is an emergency, so my character is going to wear metal armor. Well, and maybe that's something that you're imagining, but writing this out as a mechanic where your character no longer has proficiency with metal armor is something that I think is going to break a lot of questions that people have. Since barbarians start with proficiency with all armor types, saying you don't like to wear it raises the question of, okay, but if I do wear it, do I have proficiency? Is it impossible for me to wear it? And just sort of a lot of questions that are going to come up, I think, just from the way this is written. But I think you already have the idea, and based on your comments, yeah, you already know where you want this to go. So this comment here is just going to say, I think this just needs to be a little cleaned up. Make sure you bring in the actual mechanical restriction that you're thinking of here, just to make things a lot easier on a player who's reading through this, so they don't have to ask any serious questions. And they can just inherently know off the bat, okay, and I can or can't use these features that my class normally has. Then, on to the final section. Additionally, you may attempt to snarl and show aggressive animalistic side to frighten those around you. It's also, at the end, it is uses. All right. Okay, so that would be regain all uses. Okay. Gotcha. Additionally, you may attempt to, okay. As an action, you can make all creatures within 30 feet of you make a wisdom save with a DC of 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your strength modifier. Let's see here. Does Berserker Path have something similar? Intimidating presence, I think. We could definitely take a look at that. One moment. If they fail, they become frightened of you for 1 minute. If they are frightened, you may roll again at the end of their turn. Okay. So there's actually a few things I want to talk about with this feature. The first thing, though, I want to bring up is much more of a balance. There we go. It's much more of a balanced thing. So obviously, this effect is meant to either simulate or be nearly identical to either the Cause Fear or the Fear spell. With Cause Fear, as you can see, it has a range of 60 feet, but it is, I believe, a single target. Let's see here. You sense the mortality of one creature you can see within range. The target must make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened of you until the spell ends. Frightened target can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself at a success. When you cast this using a spell slot of second or higher, you can target one additional creature. So, Cause Fear is a single target spell that does something very similar to this sort of fearful, to this animalistic tendency feature, but it is going to use a spell slot and can only affect one target. So the truth is, this feature here that is coming in at 3rd level is a lot closer to the 3rd level Fear spell, which allows you to, each creature in a 30-foot cone will become frightened for the duration. Now, in fact, the feature is actually more powerful than this. So the Fear spell is a 30-foot cone. All creatures will make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened. The feature here is all creatures within 30 feet of you make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened of you. Unfortunately, this feature, as it is written right now, is way too powerful to be a third level feature. A thing to know is anytime you're looking at a spell's level is about half of a wizard's class level, meaning a wizard will have to be level 5 or 6 before they can cast a third level spell like Fear. However, this barbarian is now essentially getting the third level spell at their third level, meaning they are getting it in half the time that any other class or class feature would be able to match something like this. It is pretty strong, but I feel like the risk of hitting teammates and the immune to it until the long rest would balance it well. A barb will usually never be the only one in melee. That is true, but the fear spell also, let's hear, is also untargeted. It is each creature in the 30-foot cone. Yeah, I'm sorry, Milk. We already did the lapsus. So I'm going to say is the number one thing for this feature is, I think, if you really love it, and honestly, I love this ability. I love just kind of barbarians getting more options to do debuffing, just because I don't feel like there's enough interesting debuff encouraged by the martial classes in 5th edition. But as it's currently written, I think this feature is way too powerful for 3rd level. This is something that I think at 5th or 6th level would be perfectly in line with everything else. But as a 3rd level feature is stronger than any spell any other character could have at an equal level with the party. So I think ultimately what I would say here is this is a question of whether this is something that needs to be nerfed to a degree, which is possible, but also changing it to a single target is fine, but, you know, reduces the chances of like misfiring and hitting your allies, which I can see in your design process. You like the risk reward of this sort of barbaric creature. So I think I'd almost rather see this either A, getting pushed to a later level, or honestly B, maybe being included in another design process that you're going through. Just because I love this so much for something like a character who's meant to just be like roaring and screaming in the battlefield, and that's what their combat is based around. Might push it to a later level? Alright. Maybe swap it with something that is later and a bit weaker. Yeah, we can definitely take a look. So moving on, we're going to be looking at Abandon Humanity. At 3rd level, when you're in the middle of a fray of battle, you may disregard any form of self-preservation, and instead go on a full offensive, like a cornered animal. Let's hear. When using Rage and Reckless attack abilities, you may choose before attacking to decrease your armor class by your Constitution modifier, and instead gain that modifier to your damage and your attacks. This lasts until the start of your next turn. All right. So I think first thing, at first I was personally a little confused by the while using Rage and another feature. I was wondering if that was maybe a bit of something that people could get a little bit lost in, having to keep track of 2 features going at once. But I took a deep dive and found that there are already other barbarian subclasses that make use of when you use Reckless attack while raging. So I don't think that's a problem at all. I think maybe there's a chance of wanting to reword this so it's a little more in line with how the BHB writes it out. Because I think when you're using the Rage and Reckless attack abilities, I think might just be what's confusing me. So I think maybe just stealing the exact wording here, when you use Reckless attack while raging, just kind of A, helps it bring in line with how the PHB approaches it, and I think is a little cleaner of a way to define what exactly needs to be used. I could also be misreading this, though. Is it while you're raging, like, this works and while you're using Reckless attack it works? Or is this only when you're Reckless attacking while you're raging? I think that's the only thing that needs to be cleared up here, and is a very simple rewording to just make sure people know exact conditions for this to proc. Next up, I just wanted to look at what the effect was. So you decrease your armor class by your constitution modifier and gain that modifier to the damage in your attacks while raging and reckless attacking. Okay. So this is a very interesting feature and plays into one of my favorite things to add into any character, which is risk reward. And I do love this idea of making the reckless attack even more reckless. So the thing I want to look at to compare this to is the Great Weapon Master feature, which already exists. It isn't the same thing at all, but on your turn, let's hear, before you make a melee attack with a heavy weapon that you're proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty to your attack roll. If your attack hits, you add +10 to the attack's damage. Now here, there's a few things we can definitely see are already kind of within the basic idea of the PHB, which is you can take a penalty to gain a bonus to your attack damage. However, I do like the idea of sacrificing some of your AC to gain damage, but I think you're running into a bit of a balance issue here, where you are trading out, very likely for a barbarian who's doing decent constitution modifiers, 4 or 5 of your AC in exchange for 4 or 5 damage. And that is a massive, massive disadvantage to the barbarian. Something you might use in very dire situations, but ultimately is not going to balance out very well. At a -5 to your AC, you're basically giving all opponents about a 25% chance increase to hit you, while you are increasing the damage that you're dealing, especially with like a 2d6 weapon plus your normal strength mod of about 5. So you're normally at level 1, which this isn't, going to be dealing around 17 damage. Adding 4 to that 17 is not a massive boost to damage, but is a massive loss to AC. I thought about doing it as a bonus to damage and a hit. By the way, that was a preview. I definitely think trading out AC to bonus for hit to hit is a much more equitable trade. If you want to do both bonus to hit and damage, I think that's also fair. Just definitely keep in mind, about level 5 damage is not going to be the make or break in anything. So if you want this feature to maintain importance, you're definitely going to want to make it either be a bonus to the on hit, or you're going to want to attach proficiency bonus to the damage as well, and basically allow the damage to scale with level. Because at level 3, 5 damage is pretty fine, but as soon as you hit level 5, you're practically not going to care about a 5 damage bonus to anything. So I think this is definitely something where I really like the trade-off you're going for here, but I think it's going to need a little bit of either scaling potential or to change this to be both the on-hit and the damage. Next up, we're going to be looking at Brutalize. At 6th level, when putting your force behind your attacks, you may bring your inner animal out shortly to brutalize mortal flesh, spill blood, and sinew. Ooh, that's here. Later on, honestly, the plus to hit would be much stronger as you compare it with Great Weapon Master to negate the -5 a bit, which I agree, but also you don't want to build something assuming players will be taking other features. But yeah, that is a combo to keep in mind as the most lethal thing someone can do with what you have built. Oh, and welcome to the chat, Gandian. How's it going? Are you a long-time watcher, first-time chatter, or you just popped in because you saw we were doing some Dungeons and Dragons? As a point to consider, advantage and disadvantage roughly equates to a plus or minus 5 to rolls. So Barbarian is basically taking a plus 5 to hit and a minus 5 to AC when doing Reckless attack to begin with. Oh, first time in the stream. Hell yeah. That is actually very true. So if we think about most Barbarians being around a 5 Constitution modifier, maybe 4, maybe 3, then this is basically adding an extra advantage, disadvantage, and basically doubling the effect of Reckless, which honestly, in my opinion, sounds really cool, is doubling the risk reward for Reckless, where you are gaining advantage, granting advantage, gaining a plus 5, and granting a plus 5 is just sort of a really cool double down that honestly, I'm really in love with. I'm sorry, though. I got distracted from the... it was made for that feat combo. Okay, okay. And thank you for the follow, Gandian. At 6th level, when putting your... okay, you can spill blood and sinew. While raging, before rolling to hit with your attacks, you may declare your attacks for this turn as brutal. If you do so, you forego rolling for damage and deal the maximum damage possible. This can only be applied to melee weapon attacks. You may use this feature again after a long rest. Now, there's honestly a few clarity things I think that are coming up here. This, first and foremost, is a feature that nothing like it exists in PHB. That might seem a bit shocking to say, but there is nothing that exists in PHB that I can think of that automatically maximizes damage. That's not to say it can't stay within the balance, but just because off the top of my head, maybe someone in chat can counter me here. If there's nothing like it in PHB, that's the moment you need to slow down and go, okay, let's double, triple check this balance before we push ahead with it. I don't want to discourage people from doing things that the PHB hasn't already done. I do it all the time. But just immediately, red flag going up, maximizing damage automatically is an interesting thing to be careful around. Love to think like that as far as I... yeah. So, at 6th level... okay, so that's the flavor. When raging, before rolling to hit with your attacks, you may declare your attacks for this turn as brutal. I think... I remember something from a non-official book in 3, but not 5. And for your information, there isn't a mechanic for exploding dice either. I think there is a Chaos Bolt that can technically infinitely multiply, but it's not super important here, I think. So, I think for this first section, we're explaining what needs to happen while raging. Yeah, Chaos Bolts. Yep, thank you. And welcome to chat, Bobicus. Before rolling to hit with your attacks. I think this is another feature I just want to take a quick look at the Great Weapon Master. Before you make a... I think the wording is just... could be cleaned up a bit here. I think what I would want to say is, while raging, before you make a melee weapon attack, just because when you say before rolling to hit with your attacks, I think because this lasts for the full turn, I think we just have to define that this needs to happen at the beginning of your turn or just before you roll an attack. Saying before you roll to hit with your attacks kind of puts in a lot of words here that aren't necessary to explaining what's happening. So let's hear while raging. So let's see just if this actually clears up in my mind when I plug it in. Okay. While raging, before you make a melee weapon attack, you may declare your attacks for this turn as brutal. If you do so, you forego rolling damage and deal maximum damage possible. This can only be applied to melee weapon attacks. Yep. We're looking at somebody's, and that is Upgrade right there. And I hope he ends up really enjoying this process. I know I'm like... keep me honest here, people in chat, because anytime you're going through the critical, like looking through someone's homebrew, it can be tempting to just go on the critical side and forget to do any of the... You glaze over the parts you like because they work in your mind. So make sure you all keep me honest and ask me if there are parts here that I actually am enjoying, if it ever feels like I'm going a bit too much. Let's see. The language for reckless attack goes, when you make your first attack on your turn, you can decide to, which seems good. Honestly, yeah, I really like that. So while raging, when you make your first attack on your turn, you may declare your attacks for this turn as brute. I think that is super clean. Okay. Personally, I would make it any weapon that uses strength as its attack damage ability. Someone who has no idea that I absolutely love to learn anything. Alright. So I think that right there immediately cleaned that up a bit. While raging, when you make your first attack on your turn, you may declare your attacks for this turn as brutal. If you do so, I think that's another thing I just want to clean up a little bit. I think I want to put a period here and then say, when... Let's see here now. When brutally attacking, you forego damage die and deal maximum damage possible. This can only be applied to melee weapon attacks. Now, this is meant to a barb up in your face, foamy at the mouth. Hell yeah. Now, unfortunately, upgrade... This effect runs into a lot of possible issues. Now, this may be entirely your intention, but there's a few things I need to bring up with this that are still melee attacks. Example, does this affect Green Flame Blade? If, say, you have a Barbarian Warlock who uses their bonus action to cast Green Flame Blade, and then uses a melee attack that is brutalized, are you maximizing the Green Flame Blade's bonus damage? Oh, there's a typo? No problem, no problem. That's not as much as what we're looking into. Additionally, if you have... Oh, a Barbarian who is raging can't cast spells. True, but you could cast a spell... No, you couldn't... Okay, fair enough. Let's see here. So you can't cast spells, but there are still a few effects that can happen. An ally can grant your weapons the elemental weapon property. You can be granted the holy weapon property. There are magical weapons themselves that include other spell effects on attack. So I'm wondering, does this maximize all damage die involved with the attack? If you have... So, I think... So, you definitely want this to affect all damage die involved. So, I think that makes this really dangerous with something that is a 6-level Barbarian, 14-level Rogue. I think at that point, they're dropping at least 8 sneak attack die, which would all get maximized. Now, this is also very restricted. This is a feature that you can use once a long rest. But ultimately, because of this being declared that this is forgo rolling for damage and deal the maximum damage possible, this is a feature I think you need to explicitly state in some way that it's not just the melee weapons damage die, it is all additional die. And then to run through a few things like the holy, I think it's holy weapon or blessed weapon spell, which can be cast on allies, throwing in rogue sneak attack die, which someone can still use even if they're doing a barbarian rage, and a few other things that could carry this to a very serious level. One thing I was thinking of, and I kind of want to hear your opinion, would be instead of foregoing to roll for damage, something along the idea that all damage die can only roll a minimum of 4. Basically taking the smallest damage die that someone could be rolling, like a dagger, of a d4, and setting its maximum as a set floor for any dice you can roll. It's not a perfect solution. This one runs into its own issues. If a character's using like a D10 weapon, that is still a useful feature. That means you cannot on that die roll a 1, 2, or a 3 because they'll automatically count as a 4. It still allows players to roll die, which is honestly one of the more fun parts of the game. But also being able to just tell them the maximum damage is still pretty fun. So I guess I want to know what you think, Upgrade. The idea of instead saying maximize all damage, saying all damage die are at least a 4. What if any die rolled below the average for that die would get re-rolled, but you use the new totals? I think that lives definitely within the space that D&D already has, and I like that for how familiar it is. But I think because we want Brutalize to be a bit more of a guaranteed damage, I'm going to lean in the direction of instead saying maybe that definitely could work. What do you think, Upgrade? Ultimately, this is kind of your design process of kind of the 3 options here, which is clarify what damage is affected, set a minimum damage. My recommendation is going to be 4, just so it is maximizing a type of damage die, but not all of them. Or allow reroll below average, meaning any die that rolls below its average. So on a D6, a 3 or lower, a D8, a 4 or lower, you can re-roll, but have to use the new rolls. So this one's going to be a little less guaranteed, but does greatly increase your chances for damage. Thing is, I wanted Brutalize to be just that, brutal, so maximizing damage for a class that usually, compared to Paladin or Fighter, is subpar in damage. Kind of wanted something to really make other shit bricks. I like your idea, but I wouldn't apply it here. Maybe pick one die that's less than half its maximum, roll the max of that die out. Okay. So, are you feeling more so you want to go back into this and more clarify the exact damages that are going to be affected and ones you don't want to be affected? Because, yeah, I think make it even simpler. Declare the attack is brutal before rolling. If it hits, it's treated as a nat 20. Okay, so automatic crits for a round is also another idea I want to throw out. Because I think that is interesting, especially when paired off with the Barbarian's, like, brutal critical feature that already exists. And I think tying a feature called Brutalize to the brutal critical is pretty interesting. Oh, hello there, Matt Ard. Just dropped in. Definitely having stuff always deals max to me makes it so weapon specialization is meaningless. I think if it's too strong, I would restrain it to maximizing weapon damage. Okay. So I think that is definitely just the thing to keep in mind here, Upgrade. It would make Half-Orc Barb extremely powerful with this subclass. Especially if you throw in the Piercer feat that allows another extra die in crits. But if you want this to be something that is devastating, I think 1 round a day of auto crit on hit isn't impossibly overpowered. I might want to look around at other 6th level features just to make sure that maybe it's possible this is just a little too early in the level, but I think that's another good option available to you. So I would say keep kind of these 4 options in mind, whether it's clarifying what damages is being maximized, setting a minimum damage, or allowing re-rolls below a certain number, or the auto crits is all really... So I think these are all decent ideas that you can work with, and I just want to throw them all out as options here. I do really love kind of that brutalize idea, this idea of trying to give a class that has not a lot of guaranteed damage options, a little more of a guaranteed big oof occasionally. But yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Auto crits isn't overpowered, but ultimately this is Upgrade's design, and we're just throwing out some ideas and pointing out possible problem areas here. Yeah, that's true. All right, we're going to move on now then to Ferocity. At 10th level, your anger brings you down to your most basic instincts, sharpening your reflexes and letting you use anything at your disposal as a weapon in a fury in the moment. When you rage for the first time in combat, you may re-roll your initiative and choose to keep the current one or to change it to the new one. This change applies on the following round. Additionally, you gain proficiency with improvised weapons, dealing bludgeoning damage equal 1d4 strength, or 1d4 plus your strength modifier. Is Vorpal a thing in 5e? Because an auto crit should absolutely not be a thing. I think a Vorpal... Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Gandian. Or Gandian? I do not have a Discord. I do, if you want to have an archive, though, that holds all of the stuff I have made up to this point. If someone would be willing to drop the archive out there, all I have on it are my D&D streams, which show off a lot of my... I think Vorpals are a thing, but I don't think they do at all what they used to do in older editions. I think they kept the name because it's a staple in D&D, but its effects aren't insta-killing, essentially. Alright. So right here, I think the very first thing I want to look at is the wording and effect of the first bonus to this feature. When you rage for the first time in combat, you may re-roll your initiative and choose to keep your current one or to change it to the new one. This change applies on the following round. I think as a 10th level feature, first things first, the fact that you're re-rolling your initiative, but then holding on to a number for later use feels really bad. And archive, oh, I'm sorry, it'll be exclamation point archive. V, the sleep bunny. I appreciate you putting up the link, but I think everything is pretty auto-filtered right now. Oh, shit. Hell yeah, Gandian. If you're at all interested, you can go ahead and whisper me the stuff. If you have some homebrew you want to work on, I encourage you to whisper it off to me, and then we can have a discussion after the stream about whether you want me to just look over it myself and send you info, or if you'd really like it to be brought onto stream for everybody to take a look at, and for me to kind of do a more public breakdown. So, upgrade. I think this is a part of this that you can just remove. I think if you're going to have them re-roll their initiative, although I understand kind of what's happening here, is if they're raging in the middle of combat and they're re-rolling their initiative, then they started at an initiative, I'd have to apply it later on. Okay, no, I'm understanding why this is written the way it is. It feels muddy. Yeah. So the only reason it is falling around is because you need your turn to rage, and then you change the initiative while taking your turn. So it's initiative is initiative is very strong. I'm just going to say I feel like this feature is really muddy. It's got a lot of like because of how you're already talking about. So it is my turn, I rage, I get a new initiative that I can use next turn, which is probably going to bump me up in initiative order. I almost wonder if you just want to give them inherently, even without raging, the effect of a weapon of warning. this is at level 10, so at this point, uncommon magic items aren't a very powerful effect to a party. They'll probably have one or two rare items at this point. So I think if you just want to give this barbarian class essentially advantage on initiative rolls at level 10, I don't think that at all is ridiculous. Oh, barbs have advantage on initiative already, though. That is fair. Yeah. All right. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy here. This might be something that is just catching me a little bit. To me, the feature feels muddy, and so I want to spend time more so trying to... Yeah, I mean, level 1 Twilight Domain Clerics already give free advantage on initiative to any creature. Yeah, so I don't think advantage on initiative is broken, but also the Barbarian would already have it. I like trying to boost the initiative. I'm just wondering if there is a cleaner way to do it. It's simple. You rage, you reroll initiative. All right. Okay. Yeah, I guess that was my only thing. I guess since barbarians already have advantage, there's no point converting this into an advantage thing to make it even more straightforward. So let's see. Add your strength, roll instead of dex. It's only the first rage of combat. Yeah, and that's not so much what's kind of getting me. It's just it's a unique feature. I think this is just going to be a pattern with me, and feel free to stop me anytime. Whenever I hit a unique feature, I'm always going to spend a lot of time looking at it to make sure it isn't brokenly unique. And this feature is definitely, I think, one of a kind within D&D for what it's doing. Okay. Additionally, you gain proficiency with improvised weapons, dealing bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier. And I think you already know what we're going to be looking at because of that is the Brawler feat. Yeah, Corner Ferality is a brain dump of feature, though. Okay. Then, well, yeah, I think I know that. We'll definitely be spending quite a bit of time on that one. But for now, so there already exists within the game the Tavern Brawler feature. Or, yeah, feat that a player can take. And it's something that a lot of players don't take because it doesn't feel great to use one of your feat slots for it. It's super conditional in that it's really just about allowing you to use improvised weapons or unarmed strikes a bit better. But it's definitely something to consider with this feat that that already exists with the feature you're trying to play here. I think the first thing I just want to say is if a player building up to this point had ever taken the Tavern Brawler feat, that makes this kind of feature null and void to a degree, which isn't a huge problem. A player who's building is going to look ahead at other features and make sure they aren't accidentally doubling up on certain things, which can happen with other features, but it's something that I like to encourage trying to make sure is hard to do accidentally. Yeah, no, and like I'm just trying to think, is this a problem that it's basically a weaker version of the existing Tavern Brawler feat? I don't know if I can say whether it is a problem or not, and because of that, I'm gonna say if it's not obviously a problem, I think it's fine. But I think this is something that's worth looking into a bit more. Seeing if there's a more interesting feat you're wanting to use here. Yeah, I thought it was a slightly extra flavor feature. Efficiency, improvised weapons, bludgeoning damage equal 1d4 plus strength modifier. Another thing you could look at sorry, is I think there are some spells that give natural weapons. I thought it would be claw. Maybe it's primal. One moment. Yeah, just a little something. I'm just wondering if okay. Let's see here. channel primal magic, cause your teeth, fingernails to sharpen, ready to deliver corrosive attacks. Whenever you make a melee spell attack against a creature within 5 feet of you, on a hit, the target takes 1d10. Okay. I think what could be maybe a little more interesting here, upgrade, is instead of improvised weapons, this character is supposed to be a bit more digging into their primal stuff. It might be better. I didn't want to go too close to the beast barbarian subclass. That's true. I'll go ahead and take a look at the beast, and let's see here. So you can gain claws that are 1d6 slashing damage once a turn. Let's see, bestial soul. Call of the hunt. Yeah. Okay, it's just a feral human. I don't know. Yeah, I think, I guess I don't want to waste too much time on this. What I'd say is my gut reaction, my instinct here is that this part of the feature could be more interesting, more attractive, especially since it's a 10th level feature. I want to be more drawn to use that effect. And I feel like a barbarian, especially one who's generally going to have a weapon. No, ignore that part. I think there's just, I want to feel encouraged to use my 10th level feature instead of, okay, I guess that's there. Let's hear. Can the barbarian pick up a prop and use it as a weapon regardless of weight of the prop? Or how does it work? Well, in D&D, I think it would be like a realistic thing that you could pick up. 10th level is slightly calm break. The previous levels are pretty strong and are very heavy into the strength. Yeah. So I just want to take a quick look then. It could relate to brutalize, abandon humanity, decrease your armor class, constitution modifier, animalistic tendencies. Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah. I think I won't spend any more time on it. I think it's fine. But I would also say, I think it is worth spending a little more time. Just, is there a way to, like, maybe not, like, try to make it more powerful? Is there a way to make it more interesting, more attractive of a level? Just simply because the improvised weapons is okay, is cool to have that option without being forced to take the Tavern Brawler feat, which I like. But maybe looking at some of the other effects of the Tavern Brawler and including them as well, or just something to give it just that tiny touch of a little more flavor to it is the only thing I would say. So finally, we're going to move on to the chonky one. Cornered Ferality. At 14th level, when your wounds catch up with you, your body pumps full of adrenaline that numbs pain even further, but also clouds your minds, further fueling your slaughter, enabling you to continuously cleave seas of enemies. While raging, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain an extra attack with each kill. Your movement is doubled. You may use your bonus action to do a dash. You can also choose to use your bonus action to make another melee attack as well. Additionally, you go berserk when you are under half of your total hit points. While berserk, you attack all creatures you can reach around you, focusing on them one at a time, chasing them relentlessly until each target is dead, starting first with enemies on the battlefield. You can also choose to spend your reaction to move your full movement speed towards the nearest target. You can't end your rage willingly when berserk. Berserk ends when your rage ends, or when there are no alive creatures that you can see around you. The following things can be done to end your berserk early. An ally may attempt an animal handling, persuasion, or performance check against a DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your wisdom modifier, casting the calm emotion spell, or healing you above your total hit point. Oh shit, we got a kick redeem. 1 second, y'all. Didn't mean to miss that. Let's see. Where's my toddy kick? Yeet! There he goes. Let's see. You know, you could lower the crit threshold for improvised strikes. Hold on, Matt Arg. Okay, upgrade. I want to step back for a second. Upgrade. What do you think about the idea of just improvised weapons having a ridiculous crit range? Oh, that would be nice. And I'm not even saying make it 19 or 18. I'm saying do something crazy with it. Now, could be entirely unbalanced. If you think about how many other weapon die can be applied, don't take this number to heart, but just something, I think, just feel-wise, before we look at the actual imbalance of it, if you made crit at 15 with improvised weapons, that would be something that you're only adding in, like, on instinct, you'd only be adding, like, a d4. Of course, the moment you have, like, let's see, so this is 10th level, so 10 levels into Barbarian, 10 levels into Rogue, critting on 15 with your, like, sneak attack die, that is too much. Way too much, obviously. But I think playing around with some ridiculous crit number for improvised weapons, especially if we can find a good way to put a restriction on trying to add extra weapon die to it, is something that could be, I think, much more entertaining to think about. Because honestly, if you're swapping from like a 2d6 Great Axe to I pick up this rock, and because I'm almost always going to crit with it, it's a 2d4, it's still not as good, but it feels incredible. I'm sorry to take us a step back, but fucking that suggestion was honestly too perfect for me not to spend a moment on. So, upgrade. You've already said this, so I won't harp on about it. This is obviously a feature that is a little glutted. There's a lot going on here, and you've already said that. So I think we've got to look into a few things that are really cool and figure out more so what we might want to either cut, nerf, buff, or move around to a degree. Now, first things first, I think the simple fact that for my own legibility, I had to break this down into bullet points kind of shows this alone is a feature that's granting you 4 abilities, so it's a lot to go over. Now, while raging, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain an extra attack with each kill. I think you don't need to clarify with each kill. I think you could just say, while raging, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain an extra attack. Now, maybe that clarity is to say that that happens each time, but then I would recommend putting it up here instead to each time you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain an extra attack. I think the clarity there is just a lot better. Now, obviously, maybe you don't want to do each time you reduce it, your movement speed is doubled, so that might be kind of where the clarity issue comes in, but it feels a little weird blended in here. So, I'll undo those so we can just have it in its original form at first. So, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain an extra attack with each kill. Your movement is doubled. You can use your bonus action to dash. You can also use your bonus action to make another melee attack as well. Let's see here. Exponential movement is fun. It is fun. So the very first thing I actually wanted to show you, which I know is something... Oh god, I've got too many of these open. It's not something people know off the top of their head unless they've been running a campaign with these boys in it. Is a feature that exists in the game called Rampage. that gnolls and a few other creatures already have. When a gnoll reduces a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack on its turn, the gnoll can take a bonus action to move up to half its speed and make a bite attack hit. So that is what it's already roughly based on. All right. So I think, obviously, this is a situation where you're creating a potential infinite stack. I think you already know that. Like, obviously, there's not going to be any situation where you're really fighting infinite minions. But this is an area where you do want to make sure there is a stopgap to it. Yep. Yeah, you definitely already know all this. So, I'm thinking there's definitely some clarity that needs to happen here. I broke this into 2 features, but is this saying when you use your bonus action, you can make a dash and make a bonus attack? Or is this saying you can use your bonus action to either dash or make another melee attack? Because I think because there's so much here, and a lot of it is running into each other, there's going to be a lot of clarity that needs to happen. So this is an or. So this is 2 different bullet points. So that is a little weird to have in a feature, is one feature giving you 2 different uses for your bonus action. It's fine, but just a little weird, just in no other features tend to say, you can use your bonus action to do this, or you can use it to do this other thing. I remember giving my players a few NPCs to help them fight some gnolls once. It ended with the gnolls triggering their rampage constantly. An honest mistake. Also good times. So, I think what could be good. So, if you reduce it with a melee attack, you gain an extra attack with each go. So, let's try to think. I think number one thing I want to do here now is get rid of my bullet points, put it back into its original form. And I want us all to kind of work on a bit of clarity here. If there's any other text people are familiar with that might be able to help with clarity and the like, I really want to start with that. And then maybe figure out, are any of these features unnecessary, a bit much, or any way we can try to trim this down as much as possible. So, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain right. I want to move this out of the way for now. I think that is the only feature here that wording-wise is a little just different to everything else. So I just want to pull this out for a second and just read it again. While raging, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, your movement speed is doubled, and you may use your bonus action to do adapt. Okay, and you may, let's see. And you may, I think it's take a dash action as a bonus action. Let's see here. You may, make an attack action as a bonus action. Let's get rid of the as well. So let's see here. I want to do just a little bit of this and give this a read. While raging, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, your movement is doubled, and you may take a dash action as a bonus action. No, that doesn't quite work either. I think I need to find the way to put the bonus action phrasing first. Speed is double, and you may use your bonus action to either take a dash action or to make an attack action. I'd be inclined to probably split all the options into a bullet list, then say, when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, choose X number of features to get this turn. Okay. Alright. I just want to... I want to know, Upgrade, what you kind of think of that, but just with this last rewrite, let's see. While raging, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, your movement is doubled, and you may use your bonus action to either take a dash action or make an attack action. Make an... I'm going to just put in additional, I think. I think that's more... Ah, damn. There we go. I think that's more so how it tends to be worded, but that's fine. Okay, I reworded the subclass a bit. Coolio. But I just kind of want to show you a bit of what I did. If you refresh the Homebrew page, I reworded Brutalize. All right. Go ahead, give this a refresh. I'll pull out Brutalize, and we can take a look at that. At 6th level, when putting your force behind your attacks, you may bring your inner animal out shortly to brutalize mortal flesh and to spill blood and sinew. While raging, when you make your first attack on your turn, you may declare your attack for this turn as brutal. If you do so, you forgo rolling for weapon damage and deal the maximum damage possible. This can only be applied to melee weapon damage, and only applies to the damage dealt by the weapon's damage dice. Let's see here. Okay, so I think that would be this feature can only be... Okay. It only applies to the weapon, to the damage dealt by the weapon's damage. It only applies... I don't think you need to say the damage dealt. I think you could say it only applies to the weapon's damage dice. I think is enough there. Yeah. Okay. You may use your bonus action to take a dash action. Alternatively, you may use your bonus action to make an attack action instead. Okay. Use your bonus action. You may use your bonus action to take a dash action. Alternatively, I actually really like that. Alternatively. Yeah, that didn't get redlined? I did that right? I don't believe you. Ah, D&D info. Nice evening, Eric. Hell yeah. Alternatively, let's hear. You may use your bonus action to make an additional attack action. To make an additional attack. Yeah, I think I'll just say to make an additional attack. There we go. Now then, how best to plug this in? I think this just has to get 6k points to go. Oh god, Ubu, no. I think the final part of this just has to be kind of given its own section within the text. Where it's like, each time you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, the melee attack. So I think we just kind of have to separate this out into... There we go. Also, ferocity and corner ferality are slightly changed. Hell yeah. So I think the best thing to do for this first part of cornered ferality is kind of the rewrite that is a little bit of me, a little bit of Matt ARG. While raging, if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, your movement is doubled. You may use your bonus action to take a dash action. Alternatively, you may use your bonus action to take an additional attack. Each time you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain an extra attack. I think this is still really powerful, but it's also at level 14, so I think that power is fine. But just because the additional attack is each time, but every other feature only happens once, I think you have to separate them out into two different but similar lines. Or are you doing kind of what Gandian is saying, and each time you reduce, you regain the use of your bonus action? Oh, that could actually be a very interesting way to do that. Each time you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, you regain your bonus. You regain your bonus action. That is interesting. I think that is actually a really interesting... I want to know what you're thinking, Upgrade. Again, very much, if this is outside of the design you were going for at all, let me know. But I think that could be a really interesting way to kind of accomplish what you were going for. So now, when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, your movement speed is doubled, and your bonus action can now be used as an attack or a dash. And each time you kill, you regain that bonus action. So at 14th level, I think barbarians should have 3 melee attacks baseline already. So even if you're only using your bonus action for the dash, you still have 3 hits in you. But you can also now hold on to that. I'm already ahead of you. Refresh the page. All right. I'll take a look. Let's hear. Origin, each time you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you gain another attack and you regain a bonus. And you regain a bonus action. Barb only has 2 attacks normally? I thought they got up to 3 at a certain point. It might be after 14, but yeah. So I think regaining both your action and bonus action for each kill might be right on the cusp of too powerful. I don't know for certain if it is, and I won't say if it is or not, but it's definitely something I'd say you're gonna need to, like, field test it, bring it into combats, let players play with it. You don't regain your actions, you just gain additional attack and bonus. Gotcha. No, I understand. Alright. So I guess, ultimately, Upgrade... My recommendation is kind of the direction it's gone here a little bit, where instead you're regaining your bonus action, but can use it to make an attack. But if you're really just wanting to keep it within the gaining additional attacks with each kill, I do think that's sort of... So when does the extra attack take place? I think you just get to declare it whenever you want, would be my imagining. Because just says gain an additional attack, doesn't state when the player actually uses it. This is basically Mook Slayer feature. Gotcha. Alright. So I really like the edits we're doing. I understand if you're kind of leaning a little bit, you could do an attack whenever you want. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the major change here is, is what? You regained your bonus action. Movement is doubled, and you may use your bonus action to do a dash action or to make an additional melee attack. I define it as a free action on your turn to make a single attack. So this is just what I'm going to say. As it's currently written, Upgrade, you're now gaining an additional... Let's see here. Or make an additional melee. Yeah, perfect. Nah, I think I'm loving it, Upgrade. I love just this idea of now making the character's bonus action, like you said, kind of like Monk Slayer. I think I really like this rewrite, and I hope you're kind of enjoying it too. So we've only got one more feature here, and we're actually going to be pushing up against time. So I might have to apologize to you, Upgrade, though we'll discuss that a little more once we're done with this. Additionally, you go berserk when you are under half of your total hit points. While berserk, you attack all creatures you can reach around you, focusing on them one at a time, chasing them relentlessly until each target is dead, starting first with enemies on the battlefield. You may also choose to spend your reaction to move your full movement speed towards the nearest target. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. So that's all I would say upgrade is I think it might be a little dangerous to do. You gain an attack and a bonus action you can make an attack with. That might end up being fine. I would just say it feels on the cusp for me. It might end up being fine. It might end up being too many attacks. So I would just, I know I can only say, I would err on the side of just giving them the extra bonus action with each turn that they can choose to use as an attack or not. But it might be worth it to do the 2 attacks, simply because I'm only imagining the worst case scenario, which is a field of minions where the barbarian would just basically, likely in 1 turn, depending on the minion's health, just clear out the whole area. But in a majority of normal fights, I think it's unlikely for them to get it off too many times to be ridiculous. Honestly, if something dies from 3 attacks, it's a mook or a slight muscle for the boss. This is basically y'all focus the boss. I'm gonna take the mooks. Yeah. So I think, like I said, upgrade. I think it's right on the cusp. It's very likely it'll fall into the fine, but I think it's right at the point where this is something I would say run it a few times in some fake encounters and see if it is something that is just a little too much. I'm saying this way too many times at this point. Ultimately, I think this is just something you're going to have to run a couple of times to see exactly how it plays out, because I could imagine it being too much, but it could also end up being just fine. It's like an offhand attack that doesn't use the proficiency. Level 14, doubtful. Alright. So, you can also choose to spend your reaction to move your full movement speed towards the nearest target. You cannot end your rage willingly when Berserk. Berserk ends when your rage ends, or when there are no alive creatures that you can see around you. So, the first thing I want to say about this feature is all of this right here, upgrade, being able to spend your reaction to move your movement speed. Your party members using animal handling or persuasion checks to try to bring you back from the brink of a berserker rage. I am in love with. I love when class features start giving you other things you can do with your reaction. I love this idea of your character requiring party members to save them. Like a feature that encourages your teammates to help, and not in any sort of like mathematic or like positive or negative way, but just in a way of a please help me sort of thing, something that is so flavorful, I am absolutely in love with. I do wonder if these two things need to be split into different features, essentially, just because they don't, like, I understand flavor-wise how they're related to each other, but just mechanically they feel so disparate that there might be a need to keep them separated just for legibility's sake, for the sake of a player reading through it and understanding this doesn't literally affect the other thing. I put the split because the Berserk is only under that. Yeah, no, and I get that. I'm just saying, this is only on the legibility side. I think having them split up more obviously is just going to help people understand where one set of mechanics end and the next begin. Curious how corner friendly impacts the persistent rage. Yeah, no, I was looking ahead at that and just kind of, with persistent rage, there is the potential of someone, as long as people are near them, being permanently berserk. Spell I'd recommend looking, into upgrade is Enemies Abound, which is a 3rd level spell that, basically does to a degree what you're trying to make as the negative effect here. Target loses the ability to distinguish friend from foe regarding all creatures it can see until the spell ends. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I imagine you know it. So obviously you're wanting to still let them focus down enemies before having to turn on their allies, which I think is definitely a fine enough clarification to make, though I think what could be a more, like, interesting way to do that is maybe to have them make a saving throw or something on their turn if an ally is closer than an enemy, to target the enemy first instead. That might make it even more glutted and wordy, and it probably isn't worth the amount of space adding kind of a saving throw like that is. So seeing alive creatures also includes allies. Yeah, it would. So let's see here. While raging. Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. While berserk, your attack all around. We focus on chasing them relentlessly until each target is dead. Yeah, too much mechanically on it. Yeah, no. Go crazy. He got rid of the enemies, but he's coming menacing towards us. Agreed. Yeah, I definitely get that. And like I said, it'd probably be too wordy to add that. It's an interesting thing to say, oh, they'll try to resist, but they might fail. But at the same time, there's already a lot here. And so you can spend your reaction. Yeah. So I think this feature is fine. I would say split these up. I think putting them all into one just makes one feature that is already, even as these are split up, both of these are already, I think, are two pretty long features here. And having them together just makes it a wall of text that is pretty intimidating. Beyond that, I really love a majority of what's going on with kind of this Berserker stage. Being able to burn your reaction to run faster, having to do one target at a time. I think the only thing here is I think maybe a better mechanical clarifying that you pick a target and you will chase that target to the ends of the earth. Hey, yo, Alchemy, how's it going? So I might encourage something in here along the lines of, like, mark a target. Just sort of the wording that, you mark one enemy that you can see at the beginning of your turn, and you must spend all of your actions moving towards and attacking them if you have it available, just to mechanically clarify to a player what needs to be happening here. Like, I think it is very obvious flavor-wise. While you're Berserk, attack all creatures you can reach around you, focusing on them one at a time, chasing them relentlessly until the target is dead. Yeah, wording in D&D is super important. So I think if you were to do something like, let's see here. While Berserk, at the beginning of your turn, mark the nearest, let's see here. Mark the nearest, living creature to you. Let's see here. So, with preference given to... Oh, I get it. Mark the nearest living creature to you, I think, of your choice, I think would still work. Because I think a player will always choose enemies. So if anything is tied for them... No. Nearest living creature to you of your choice would still mean if an ally is closest, you'd have to pick them. Oh, damn. This is, done. Refresh page. Okay. You're keeping ahead of me. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Berserk. Well, okay. You attack all creatures you can reach around you, focusing one at a time relentlessly. At the start of your turn, you could choose to spend your reaction with your full movement speed towards the nearest target. Okay, so I think it's close. I don't know. Maybe OSHA's was... Might want to refresh again. Okay, I'll do one more refresh, but then I'm just going to kind of try to word out what I'd kind of want this to be like. Hey, when does Berserk end? I missed that part. If you get to target enemy first, I'm not seeing a downside if you can end it early. Yeah, if you can end it early, I think there's supposed to be not as much of a downside, but we'll see. 1 second. Target is dead, starting first with enemies unavailable. You can also choose to spend your ABA. Okay. You can't end your music. Turn. First one. You can choose to spend your reaction mode. Maybe I missed the edit again. There's no downside to the early ending because it's hard to end the age. Yeah. So if you want me to reread that portion, the following things can be done to end your berserker early. An ally may attempt an animal handling, persuasion, or performance check against a DC 8 plus your proficiency plus your wisdom modifier. Casting the Calm Emotion spell, or healing you above half your total hit points. Barb got a migraine. Gotcha. So let's hear. While Berserk. At the beginning of your turn, mark the nearest living creature. Okay. Attack all creatures you can reach around you. Let's hear. At the beginning of your turn, you must... There we go. You must mark one living creature that you can't see. Let's see. At the beginning of your turn, you must mark one living creature that you can see. On your turn, you must use all... Let's hear. I gotta see. Let's hear. Maybe this is your friend. Let's see. Whenever affected, it's time the target takes damage. Whenever affected creature chooses another creature to target, it must choose a target at random. Whenever he provokes an opportunity. Here's a thought. Keep those two big features, but a player chooses one they want when they hit 14. The thing is, Berserk is a mostly negative feature that is, I think, a very flavorful, but isn't really something you would ever choose over Cornered Ferality. It's more so a way to balance out the infinite potential that Cornered Ferality brings with it. So I don't think a choice here would work. So what I'm thinking is, while Berserk, at the beginning of your turn, you must mark one living creature that you can see. On your turn, you will pursue... maybe I'll just steal the wording you already have. So you will... Let's see. You will begin chasing and okay. So I just want to see upgrade what you think here. This is a much less flavorful and more mechanical version of what you've stated. So I can understand if you're going to prefer to err on the side of kind of the thematic flavor wording. But I think this could be something to consider. A way to mechanically state out exactly what the limitations of going Berserk are. I mean, I don't think Cornered should be infinite. I would limit it to a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus or something regained on a short rest. Oh, yeah, I think... Ooh, that is interesting. And something to consider is maybe have a starting proc limit. Not like restrict you once you've started a killing spree, but maybe a way to limit it at all. I don't know if it needs it. It probably doesn't need it if you think about things very realistically. Infinite sounds dangerous, but it requires A, an enemy, B, for you to hit them, and C, for them to die from that hit. all of these are, I think, enough protection from an infinite loop, especially if a DM is aware of this ability. Oh, I'm sorry, Alchemy. Thing is that the cornered is mainly to make you deal with mooks. Yeah. And I agree. I think it's something to consider, having a limit. I don't think it's needed. I think inherently this is pretty limited enough with kind of the 3 features that need to happen for it to keep proccing. But it might be something to consider at a later point. But I think the last thing I wanted to ask, Upgrade, is what you think kind of my changing of this wording to make things a little more on the mechanical side of things. While Berserk, at the beginning of your turn, you must mark 1 living creature that you can see. On your turn, you will begin chasing and attacking them relentlessly until the target is dead. Okay, no, while Berserk, at the beginning of your turn, if you have no marked, or no, I'll put that at the beginning of your turn, you must mark 1 living creature that you can see. If you don't already have, let's hear. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get the best wording I can to make this. I wouldn't use living. What if you're fighting undead? Okay. 1 conscious? Is that what it would be? Conscious creature? I might state 1 creature, honestly, and just, like, 1 creature. For now, I'll just say 1 creature. It sounds really good, but I think I wish to lean more on the slightly more left for interpretation version. Sadly, it's very much into roleplay, and it kills me to reduce words more to basic mechanics like how 4E is mostly written. Okay, I can understand that. Then what I would say, I'll stop there, since all I'm doing is kind of trying to make this a bit more mechanically specific. But if you are really wanting to write it more on the flavor side, which is 100% fair, I think I'll go ahead and stop that there for you. So, I think all that's left are the optional rules for role-playing. I'll go ahead and read these off if you would like me to, but I'm not going to give any edits to this sort of thing. You can't read and can only speak in grunts, growls, simple words, and short, broken sentences. You can speak to animals and you can understand their general intent based on their behavior and understand simple ideas and information they may convey to you. You can speak the secret druidic language. You are not self-aware, and mirrors confuse you, thinking there is another creature inside them when you see your reflection. This might also result in curious or aggressive outbursts from you. Roll a 1d6, choosing odds or evens for each result. Well, there we go. I believe that is kind of everything I had written up and prepped for the kind of path of the primal instinct. I know a lot of this is stuff you were already talking about, that you've got. I am here, bathe in my glory. Tim, the prodigal sorcero. Hell yeah. So Upgrade, I know a lot of this is probably stuff you kind of already had in mind. You have been editing on the fly like crazy, so I know you have been totally prepped for a lot of this to be coming your way. But I just want to know, a lot of people love it as well. Yeah, hell yeah. Want to know kind of what you felt about this kind of process. Are there any major things you're really curious about after that had happened? Anything you want to know, like what are some of my favorite features? Anything I still think needs to get some definite look over at this point? Because all I can say is definitely after all this, a lot of the stuff I think you've already edited around out, and a lot of it had to do more so with clarity and maybe pushing things up or down a little bit. What I would say is the one feature I really think has a major balance issue, and honestly a little bit of a flavor issue, was was sort of the growling, snarling ability. Yep, I was looking forward to this. Your change suggestions were amazing. I took to heart yours in the chat's kind of suggestions on the virality. Hell yeah. I saw building monster saw if I could find anything for one of my 7 homebrew bosses for the campaign. I'm tempering. Oh, I'm shit. I'm sorry, Tim, but we started off with the monster builder and we're now just looking at some homebrew stuff. But if you ever have any homebrew you want to send to me, we can always bring up monsters and the like and get chat's opinions. Yes, I want to know what you loved and hated. So, I want to start with this feature right here. Upgrade. I love this roaring, snarling effect. I love the idea of creating what I want to call like a battle screamer, a barbarian who like runs around the battlefield, buffing allies, debuffing the enemies, slaughtering and tanking, and it's just based on these bellowing shouts and screams. But I think this feature is too powerful for level 3. I think this is the equivalent of a level 4 spell, honestly. It is something that needs to either be pushed later, or I would love to see you use in another barbarian subclass, like a battle screamer, or something a lot more fear-oriented. Because ultimately, this subclass is super great in its ability to kind of make this reckless, risk-reward, damage-up sort of thing. Something that is really good at hammering on the damage, leading to that infinite chain with the ferocity that just kind of is stacking more and more and more brutality to it. And I feel like the snarling effect doesn't fit in with that mechanical theme as much. I think I want to reduce it. They're frightened of you to the end of their next turn and take away immunity from the mitts. Yeah. Just everything that's specific. I'm sorry, Tim. I'm sorry. So honestly, and I understand, I love this feature as well. I think this is super cool, and I would love to see this like in a more dedicated subclass. But I think that's the hardest part for me, is to say I don't love it in this subclass or at this level. I'll focus on improvisation and the dynamic combat abilities. Yeah. So I would think it might be worth it to pull this for now and think of something else more attack, risk, reward, yeah, oriented to kind of look into, and maybe using this for something else. Because I'm going to say, do not scrap this ability. I love it. I just think it doesn't quite mesh with the rest of the design going on here. Oh, hell yeah. No, dude. And if you use this for, like I was saying, a much more debuff-oriented barbarian, fucking let me know right away, because debuffing tanks are my favorite thing. I really love how well you did with the risk-reward building here. The idea of kind of having the losing armor class to increase kind of your to-hit chance is really cool when you stack it on the already risk-reward reckless attack. I think that it might have a chance of players accidentally killing themselves by not realizing how much of a risk-reward it is, but I still love the option it kind of gives to you. I think, from the sounds of it, you've been doing a lot with Brutalize, and I really loved kind of how much we were able to go into it. There's a lot of really good ideas here, and I think, from what I've already seen about the edits you've made to it, I'm more in love with the direction you're going with it than where it used to be. Yeah. I think that's about where I'll have to end my comments, though. Chat. What was your favorite feature that you saw here? What was something just about this that you absolutely love and might steal for your own subclass if you're a builder? Or that you've just kind of been sent into just that mindset of, ooh, how do we want to use that? Now, while you all are typing upgrade, I will, yeah, we'll let them chat. We'll have them talk about that. Unfortunately, yeah, no, I'm sorry, Tim. But the VOD will be up as soon as the stream is done, and I will be sending this off to my archive as soon as I can. But unfortunately, we are already past the time slot I was expecting to use for going into all of this. So I'm afraid we will not be able to go into the discharged veteran or the survivalist this stream upgrade. And I'm sorry about that. I'm afraid we're right at the edge of time, and I'm going to be ultimately having to call it here, and definitely will not be able to get fully into the next class. Oof, next time? Hell yeah. Honestly, I'm really loving this process, and I'm super excited next Saturday to go ahead and yeah, so I stream anywhere from 4 to 5 on both Friday and Saturday. Friday I'm currently using for my Monster Hunter streams. Is it the end? It has not been the end. I've actually been streaming for 2 hours. I did lose internet halfway through Alchemy, and I'm sorry about that. But there should be a VOD up for the first hour of the stream, since I think I lost connection there. So it probably created something. So, next time we will be going into upgrades in next subclass, the Discharged Veteran, and going into a very interesting class that is playing around with a feature that I think is really fascinating. And one D&D I think has been intentionally avoiding trying to put down rules for: the act of learning and teaching. But we will not be getting into that tonight. We will instead be calling it here, with the hopes that I'll be able to wish all of you a good night. Eric, we're not at time. Just keep going. I'm sorry. I've got other things I need to be doing today. Probably going to steal the scream effect for a bard archetype I'm conceptualizing. Hell yeah. Tweet another sketch of an updated monster. Maybe you could show it really quick? Okay, I'll do that. That's right. I'm definitely turning in next time. Maybe even throw in my own homebrew race I've been working on. Hell yeah. So, first things first, everybody. If you want to catch any of my past streams where I've talked about my own homebrew, the story times I've done, or anything else with... Hey, get out of here. Or anything else with any of my D&D streams, head off to the archive and check out anything I've got up there. There's currently... My last stream hasn't been posted yet because I'm having to do some edits to make sure it's all put up as one stream. But I'll make sure to get that out as quickly as possible. I'll also be putting up this stream as well, hopefully before next week. However, I know there are quite a few of you out there with your own homebrew that are sounding a bit excited after this stream to send me your shit. So, anybody in chat? I'll also use a star in your stream, Lamau. Okay. So, anybody in chat? Anybody at all, if you have your own homebrew stuff that you want me to take a look at, please just DM, whisper, anything you want to me, and I would be more than happy to give you my opinion, comments, and how I might change it, or things I'd recommend to look into on your own homebrew. If you send me anything, I'm going to default to assuming you just want my comments on it. If you want it to go up on stream, please make sure you include in the comment, the message, the DM, the whisper, anything you send me, that you want this to go up in front of people. Just because I'm never going to assume that someone's personal project is at a stage that they're ready to have it publicly shown. Well, I've been working on a lot of things, but it's not D&D. Oh, okay, crazy. I mean, if it's another TTRG, you can send it to me, but my realm of balancing and homebrew knowledge is more so specifically within D&D, so I can't guarantee anything when it comes to outside sources. But yeah, please, I encourage anyone with their own homebrew, send it to me, ask me my opinion, and if you want, tell me you want to see it up on a stream, and I will make sure that happens, because honestly, I've enjoyed this a lot. Even if there are times when I'm like, oh god, I'm being way too critical, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. It's still super fun to be looking at other people's creations and seeing how everybody feels about it and the like. So, next time, we will be going ahead and moving into the next of upgrades homebrew stuff. And if I get a flood of other races, classes, magic items, or monsters from any of you, please, 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 please send it to me, and I will put it up on stream if you want, or just personally send you my own comments and opinions. Would you be willing to look at a homebrew, like, for races and things? World homebrew. Yeah, I might not put that up on stream just because of how broad that might be. Next Saturday, likely at 5 o'clock. I might start earlier at 4:30, but I would say anywhere from 4:30 to 5 is generally when I stream Upgrade. But yeah, the local Benez, feel free, and I will tell you anything that I can. I'll have no problem commenting on Homebrew World stuff. Though if you want to watch any of my archives about how I built my Homebrew World, please feel free to go there and check that out. You might be able to get some of my opinions and build stuff without having to try to boil down your entire world to details that you can send to me. I don't know how D&D works, but I love designs. Hell yeah, Marcial. I do hope people who don't know D&D are still having fun with these types of streams, because I fucking love them. Now then, one last thing before we go. I believe someone sent me a new drawing of our little boy. Oh my God, y'all. Can I get everybody's fucking... Oh, he is adorable, Marcial. I fucking love him. Oh, man. I don't know a thing, and I'm having fun here. Hell yeah, Alchemy. I'm glad to hear that. Two cold necromancy archetypes, the style latest UA for Strixhaven. It's a well done soapy monstrosity. Yep. Alright, though. Alright, y'all. I'm afraid I am very much over time at this stage, and we'll be having to call it a night. But next weekend, I'll be doing another Monster Hunter stream, and Friday, we'll be going back into D&D, and from the sounds of it, we're going to have a lot more homebrew to look at and to examine. Please check out my archive if you have the time and are interested to learn about some of my own homebrews and how I go about making them. But for now, good night. And see you all soon.